Herd immunity probably takes the prize for being the most misunderstood term of 2020. It is also widely misused to mean the willful culling of vulnerable people in a population during an epidemic. The way to understand herd immunity is by recognizing that your risk of infection depends very much on how many people around you are already immune. When a virus arrives in a population, it starts to spread very quickly because people are not immune. So everyone is available for infection. But as it spreads, it limits its own possibilities because people start becoming immune, putting up a barrier to its spread. Eventually, it settles to a level that we call an endemic equilibrium. So it moves from being epidemic to being endemic. That is to say, it persists at a stable level, fluctuating around on such factors as seasonality. That is exactly how we live with the other coronaviruses. So there will always be an increase in cases around winter, and then they drop off again in the summer. This is also true of influenza, pneumococcal pneumonia, a whole range of other respiratory infectious diseases. So there are 4 other coronaviruses that we currently live with that are all circulating in the human population. And the reason you don't hear about them is because there is herd immunity to each one of them, which keeps the risks of being infected very low. Immunity to these coronaviruses is established upon infection, but it doesn't last forever. So after a while, you become infected again. You are reinfected. Our relationship with these coronaviruses is one of repeated reinfection. But reinfection does not carry with it a significant threat of severe disease or death. So this is a slightly different situation to measles, where you become infected and immune and remain immune for life. As you get older, you suffer what we call immune senescence, which means that your immune system doesn't work as well as it used to, and this is why the elderly are particularly vulnerable to disease and death. Every year, a number of elderly people do die of these other coronaviruses, but the risk of coronavirus infection among the elderly is kept low by herd immunity. Well, there's no reason to believe that this novel coronavirus is more virulent intrinsically than the other seasonal coronaviruses, as we call them. The difference is that when this new coronavirus arrived, it encountered a population where there was no immunity to this new virus other than that which accumulates from exposure to the other coronaviruses already in circulation. Given how the other coronaviruses behave in human populations, it is reasonable to assume that this novel coronavirus will also settle down to that endemic equilibrium where the risk of infection in the vulnerable population is of the same level that we accept for all the other coronaviruses. So people have questioned the idea of whether herd immunity can be established to this new virus for a number of reasons. First of all, there was a question surrounding whether we would develop immunity at all to this virus. Not surprisingly, we have learnt that we do develop strong protective immune responses, just as we do to all the other coronaviruses. So we know that immunity is established upon infection. What we don't know is how long it lasts. If we go by the other coronaviruses, it is not going to be lifelong. But this does not mean that you cannot establish herd immunity. Indeed, we know that we have herd immunity to all these other viruses. How is that possible? The rate of loss of immunity doesn't actually affect the level of immunity that's maintained in the population. In an endemic state, the rate at which people are losing immunity is matched by the rate at which people gain immunity. It's a bit like water flowing into a cistern. To start with, when you have an empty cistern, the water gushes in. But as the cistern fills up, the rate at which water pours in slows down. So the build-up of immunity in the population is like the filling up of the cistern. Now, once the cistern fills up, it will remain at that level, even though some water might leak away from it, because it will be replenished by water coming into it. It could leak away very slowly, as it does for measles, because immunity is lifelong, and be replenished very slowly by new people being born and getting measles. Or it could leak away very quickly, as it does for the coronaviruses. But then it is replenished also quickly by reinfection. So you end up maintaining this level of water in the cistern, or population level immunity or herd immunity, whether or not the leakage from the cistern is slow or fast.